Hey everybody, welcome to the Raw Online Report, sponsored by Euromuscle. It's a little early. It's just turned June. It's a little early to call Rookie of the Year, but I have a feeling this gentleman right here might end up being the rookie of Open Men's Bodybuilding for 2025. Please welcome Kennedy Anyanwu. What's up, Kennedy?
Hey, how you doing, Ron? I thought you were going to do a Tim Wilkin and do the AKA Colossus Ken along with it.
Colossus
That's pretty cool.
Are you ready to rumble? No. But, man, I'm so impressed by what I saw at New York Pro, where you just missed the top 5. Tough lineup. And, again, impressed at this Legion Sports Fest over the last weekend. You were 5th, and I honestly could have had you as high as 3rd. And I'm not just saying that because we're talking right now. I was saying that during my coverage of the show and everything. And I was surprised when I saw the score sheet that it was, straight first, straight second, straight thirds. It didn't seem like any deviations in that top 5. Nobody changed from finals to judging or anything like that. But I want to get this out of the way because you just leaked it to me before we started recording. When I was doing this, I said, Anyanwu, I wonder if he's of Nigerian descent, because we're seeing so many amazing guys either from Nigeria or, it was Quentin, Samson, Andrew Jack, Blessing. And this is a fairly recent phenomenon in bodybuilding, but how long, when did you know that Nigerians were special as far as bodybuilding genetics?
To be quite honest with you, Ron, and thanks for having me, by the way, on here. I really appreciate it. To be honest with you, with the Nigerian bodybuilding, right? It's before Samson and Andrew kind of came on the scene, it was always Silvio Samuel and Victor Richards that were kind of known as the main Nigerians, right? Yeah. But if you look behind the scenes, I think just like West African genetics in general, when it comes to that side of the world, seems to be very primed for bodybuilding. Ghanaians, Bonak is a Ghanaian. Nigerians first, I feel like, infiltrated into the UFC. That was where they first started to go. Because what I think is happening, especially with Nigerians, and maybe a lot of people don't know this. I was born and raised here, but a lot of people don't know this. But like Nigerian culture is very, very heavily, it's heavily strayed towards academia. So a lot of Nigerians don't really pursue sports as the end goal, because it's kind of seen as, from a percentage standpoint, realistically, how many people are really going to make it as superstars in a sport versus if you go get a regular job, right? So you see that a lot of Nigerians they push their kids towards, school. Like, that's why you see a lot of Nigerians. There's a joke amongst Nigerians: if you're not an engineer, you're not a doctor, you're not a lawyer, or one of those, you're a failure. Automatically, you're a failure in life, But what we've seen over the last few years, and I think with social media and just the internet and globalization in general, is that there's been exposure. Nigerians are starting to get exposed, to actually how lucrative sports can be. And, there's a lot of guys, I think, who was it that said this? King Kamali was talking about it like in Iran, right? A lot of guys walking around that have like a 6-pack or whatever. It's the same in Nigeria. Like, these guys they don't eat the same like we do here, but they have phenomenal physiques. They just don't have the opportunity, to do like what we do. So I think that some people that have been able to leverage that, like Andrew, right? If you look at Andrew before he even started like competitive bodybuilding, he looked like he had already won shows, So they're starting to actually get into the sports arena. And I bet you, because I think Bonak has a show now in Ghana. I think with more people exposing bodybuilding to that side of the world, you're going to start seeing a lot more like heavy talent from that region of the world. Because, that's what happened with the Middle East and Brazil. Look at Brazil right now. Brazil is a powerhouse. It wasn't like that, 15, 20 years ago. It was only Eduardo Correa was the only Brazilian that I remember that was like actively competing. And look at it right now, So I think with time and with the NPC IFBB, like bringing this to that side of the world, you're going to start seeing a lot of guys that are a lot better than me and Samson and Andrew. But I'd say this: if there's one thing, people don't forget, this show with Legion, we had a running joke, me and Toby. So Toby is he won the North Americans 2024. I won 2023, and he's Nigerian as well. Blessing is Nigerian as well.
Oh, Toby. I could not pronounce it. I was murdering his name.
Yeah. So the short form is Toby. That's the best way to say it, Toby.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we had a running joke that this show is to establish who's the number 3 Nigerian, in bodybuilding right now. So I think I'm number 3, man. I think after Samson and Andrew, I'm the number 3 Nigerian right now on the scene. So I got to make it to number 1, which is a tall order.
Fight to get his 3rd spot back.
Yeah. I think I've seated him right there.
So we're showing some of the Legion stuff. This is just a copy of a copy, basically, but still, I hope it comes through. You can see
I can see it.
Structure, the size, the shape. Yeah, I mean, you're not missing much. The only critique I had on you that's you're a work in progress, and you're going to get better and better and better. A little more lower lats, and you're going to be kicking all these people's asses. A little more condition, but geez, this wasn't your debut. New York Pro was your pro debut, correct?
Yeah. New York Pro was a debut 2 weeks ago.
But wow. So I know nothing about how you got it. First, I got to get this out of the way too. We mentioned engineers. Andrew Jack is an engineer, and you're also an engineer, cybersecurity engineer. So you're basically like a big computer nerd, a very big computer nerd.
I am. As you can see, I actually went all out for this setup just for this interview. Usually you just have like a little bit of webcam on your computer. I'm like, nah, let me get I like tech. I'm a real tech nerd. It's something. Bodybuilding and tech has always been things that I'm heavily interested in. So I basically went to school for IT, got into cybersecurity a couple years ago, and I've pretty much been doing it ever since. It's a passion of mine, to be honest with you. It's something that I really love outside of this, and I think that with bodybuilding, maybe I have a different perspective than a lot of people, but now that I've started to get to the upper echelons of bodybuilding, I didn't see this a lot when I was in my amateur career, but the do or die, where it's like, this is it. Like, I live this. There's nothing else in my life but this. I don't subscribe to that. I think people should be a little bit more multifaceted. Yeah. And for me, it gives me the ability to appreciate bodybuilding. Like online, when I see just how negative online can be sometimes with bodybuilding and how people perceive things, it's like, damn, we're really just lifting weights, and presenting a physique on stage. Like, why are people so uptight about this? It shouldn't be something that should elicit any kind of negative. It's a privilege to be able to do this. And that's kind of, at least for me, from my perspective now, being just a 9-to-5 guy who happens to, compete, from time to time. It's a privilege to be able to even, step on stage and to be able to say, I'm going to go work out, have a body that I actually like, that I can present, and, maybe in the future, make some good money out of it. I think it's a privilege, and it's a wonderful thing. There's not many people in the world that can do that. And sometimes I think we forget that as pros, when people look at us as pros, there are not many people that are doing this in this world. And it's such a privilege to be in that position. So I don't take it for granted. I'll be honest with you, because I'm in both worlds right now. I'm walking the line of both worlds, and I understand what it means to be like a regular civilian and what it means to be an open pro competitive bodybuilder. So yeah.
Oh, kind of like Blade as a daywalker. He's half vampire, half human.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me the story of how you became a bodybuilder.
It's not too different from a lot of people, back in high school, I was short. I'm still short, but I was short and small.
What's short for you? I'm curious, because we got some short guys in bodybuilding.
I think 5'7", 5'6", 5'7" is considered short. In bodybuilding, right?
Well, no, you got 212s that are 5 foot. So
yeah.
I get what you're saying. You weren't the tallest guy. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm not the tallest guy, right? So in high school, I was as a teenager, right? The first thing that you just want to be taken a little bit more seriously, right? You want to have some kind of self-confidence. And that was kind of what steered me to it originally. I wanted to lift weights to just be bigger, just to have more confidence in myself, for people to take me seriously. You know, as you can tell, I'm a little chatty.
Okay.
I've always been like that my whole life. I've been like that my whole life, you know. So when you're a scrawny guy, you're a little chatty. It's a very different response you get. Trust me. You know, eventually, when I actually joined the gym, I actually saw a bodybuilder for the first time, and I had never seen a bodybuilder in my life. You know, Michael Jensen. He was like a local bodybuilder at the time, and I just couldn't believe a body could look like that. You know, now in hindsight, he was nothing really special, but like, and that's why I say sometimes when you talk about open pro bodybuilding, what a privilege it is, you forget that like to a regular person, you look like an alien completely out of this world. Because I remember that first time when I saw him, he was getting ready for a show, and I was like, damn, like as a teenager, I was like, if I could look like that, all my problems are solved, you know? That's the solution to all my problems right there. So, so I asked him, you know, how do you get big? Like every other dumb person asks a bodybuilder, right? How do you get big arms? How do you get big? And he was actually nice to me. You know, he actually, you know, because I was an athlete at the time as a student. You know, I did track 200 meters, and he asked me like, you know, by working out, like, what do I do? And I told him, and he basically gave me a plan, and I followed it. And pretty much I watched Pump and Iron. He actually showed me Pump and Iron. He said, go watch this movie. And Pump and Iron was my first introduction into actually bodybuilding. So from the very beginning, I kind of understood like the competitive side of bodybuilding, making sure you have a balanced physique, right? So I was a guy that like I was training from the very beginning with the intention that my physique should look like something that is more balanced, like towards what Arnold was trying to preach in Pump and Iron, you know, and that was kind of how I fell into it, you know, and to be honest, I never stopped after that. And then I competed. I did a natural show.
Back up. When did you, because obviously you're, I call it genetic freak, and that's not a bad thing. It's you have these gifted genetics, like everybody in the open pro bodybuilding that's in that first or second call out. When did you know, how far into the training at that gym were you when you started to develop at a faster rate, or you had a different look to your body? Because the people like you, I can spot them from like a mile away, even when they're in their early stages. I go, watch this guy, he's going to be something. When did you know?
It was quick. It was very quick, Ron. I started training, I was like maybe 165 pounds.
Okay.
You know, when I started training, like I said, I was athletic. And within 3 months, I kid you not, within three to 4 months, I was like 175 to 180. I had abs, I had barrel chest, you know, at the time, you know, now from what I see online, they're like, oh, his biceps suck. But at the time, my arms were like my biggest, you know, they were my biggest body part. You know, I had that kind of like Donkey Kong looking physique. Yeah, I developed really quickly. Like if you saw me after 3 months, you would have probably thought I would be lifting for like 2-3 years. Wow. To be quite honest with you. Like, and I can send you pictures after if you want to see what that looked like. And then I just never stopped, you know, and I did a natural show after that, like 2 to 3 years after. And I won the show. I took the overall for novice. And then actually for the open, I actually beat the guy who it was like a back end show in some place in Brooklyn in New York. I have everything. There's an animal documentary that we just did. It's also in there. So if people want to see all the stuff we're talking about, just go to Animal Pack's page. Everything is documented. I sent all the pictures. There's evidence of everything there. And you know, pretty much I came second to the guy, but because they couldn't give it to me. He was a guy that was he was established there as a natural. So it's like, all right, whatever. So after that, and we talked about the Nigerian culture thing. You know, I wanted to just get my degree, you know, focus on that. Because I didn't think that bodybuilding, I didn't think like I'd been following bodybuilding for a couple of years after I had met that guy in high school. So I'd been following the sport competitively, but I just never thought that I could look like that. You know what I mean? Like you see a guy like Ronnie Coleman and you look at yourself and you're like, I'm never going to get there. It's just too, the ceiling is way too high and I'm way too deep at the bottom. So I'll be honest, Ron, I kind of gave up on it. I was just a gym bro. I, I was just a gym bro after that competition. I, graduated college and started working. And there was one thing that changed that, which was, I know this is going on YouTube, so I don't want to skew your SEOs, your search engine optimizations here, but the C word, right? The pandemic happened.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the C word that women hate. But
no.
Yeah.
Oh man, you just screwed your numbers on YouTube, didn't you? Just right now with that word.
I had no idea that would happen.
But the pandemic happened, and here on the East Coast, things shut down. It was the first time in my life that I hadn't been to a gym in 6 months. And I'm kind of, I don't know how you are, Ron. I'm kind of like an all or nothing guy. If I can't train to the limit the way I like to train, I'm just not going to do it at all. So I just stopped, I just stopped training, and I lost sight of myself. And I realized, I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, man, what a waste of a human being. What a waste of everything you've done up to this point, because I had a good physique. Even when I was working, I had a great physique.
Yeah.
And I told myself that when things open back up, I'm going to actually try this bodybuilding thing. Like, let's just see where it goes. Let's just take it all the way and see where it goes. And pretty much that was it. And I competed in Delaware, the Del Marva, in 2021. That was my first show, NPC show.
Yeah.
And I took the overall at that show for bodybuilding. And I went to nationals after that. Nationals in Florida in 22.
Yeah.
I didn't do as great there in nationals. It was my first one. There was a higher level, right? I was the biggest guy in the heavyweights. I came in at about 221. Yeah. 221 at that show. At the time, I wasn't sure. I had never been to a national show. I didn't know what people were going to look like. I didn't know. So I was like, I'm just going to come in as big as I can, because I felt like I was going to be small. Well, turns out I was the biggest guy. I was the biggest heavyweight when I got there. But I just wasn't as tight as I needed to be, So I didn't make the first call outs. And then that was the first time after that show, the guy who came third, Sid, he was like the most peeled guy in the show. And for me, I like to learn. If I don't know something, I'm not gonna act like I do, right? So I went up to Sid and I asked him, I said, who do you work with? Like, because he was conditioned, he was peeled. And he told me, I'd spoken to Suleios. He was the one who had introduced me, done the introduction to Sid.
Yeah.
And he had told me he worked with Andrew Vu. And I after that, Sid introduced me to Andrew Vu. And I was like, we're going to take a break. And he's like, no, you have everything right now. Like, we're going to prep you for North Americans. So we took a month, to eat up a little bit. And then we started to prep for North Americans, and I turned pro.
So prior to working with Andrew, were you doing it all on your own?
I had worked with a local guy here in New Jersey. So he had actually was the one who had prepped me for the Delaware State show, and then he had prepped me for nationals. The only unfortunate thing, and we've gone through it now, but the only unfortunate thing, he was a competitor himself.
Wow.
So he actually competed in that show with me, like in my class.
Oh no.
So it was like there's a conflict of interest. There's a conflict of interest here, like. And it wasn't, and I'm not saying this as a way to like negative in any negative way against him. He has his own goals too. You know what I mean? So it was just like, for me, there's a conflict of interest. So I have to find something that works, and just across the board, I knew that I needed like another level. There was just a different level that I knew when I saw myself at Nationals 22 and I saw the other guys, I knew there was something I was missing. There was just a level that I had just not achieved yet. And I needed the answers to that. And so Sid introduced me to Andrew, and then we prepped for North Americans, and that was it. I turned pro, and here we are. you know, 18 months later, we did a full off season because we knew that now that I was a pro, I turned pro at 217. I wasn't going to be big enough, you know, to hang with open pros at 217. I couldn't go down to 212. You know, I had suffered to get to that weight to begin with. So my physique wasn't going to look good as a 212 either. So I needed to put on more size. Right. Mm-hmm. So instead of jumping into the pro ranks, we took about 18 months to put on the size that we could. So I went from that 217 to 285 in my off season. Wow. Yeah. I blew up. I just blew up. So once we got there, he said, okay, now it's time. Let's prep and let's see what when we trim off this fat, let's see what we've got under there. And the result is the New York and Legion. And here we are today.
This is one of your pinned pictures on your Instagram account. And it looks like just somebody morphed your picture here. You know, doesn't it look like just somebody photoshopped and made the guy on the left way bigger? And that's 45 pounds of tissue right there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
This condition is very, very, I'd say the condition's identical left to right.
Yeah. Because that was the 230 was around nationals time. Me and my girlfriend took a vacation after that. Yeah. After that, you know, so I was around the 230s. And then this one was pretty much was it this year or last year? I forget, but this was recently, you know, when we just started to come down. So yeah, it was there's a lot of tissue added, you know. There's a lot. If you look at the one in the center too, that's my North Americans look.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Versus New York. You can see that, you know, there was just a lot of size that we just put on in general. So
I've talked to other guys in that situation, and you know, the off season is much harder for them because I don't know. Are you somebody with a naturally big appetite, or did you really have to force the food to put all that size on?
So that's so here's the problem. This is where it's interesting with me. I never needed much food to begin with.
Huh.
I really suffered, you know, that 217 for North Americans. I was eating like a bikini competitor.
Yeah.
I wasn't eating a lot. And we needed to work on one of the things is we needed to work on my metabolism. Like I needed to be able to just eat more. You know, so even now at 285, when I got to 285 as a you know, during that off season, I was still eating just like a little under 4,000.
Wow.
You know, which isn't that much for an open pro bodybuilder. So I've never really had a problem with eating to put on size. Where I've had problems is the diet, man. Like I really have to suffer to get the diet, you know, to get it down. So, you know, I'm not, and I make fun of Stu about this. I'm not a guy that can walk in the woods and just start getting shredded just by taking day walks. You got to put me on I got to suffer. I got to go on a Stairmaster and do like intervals, you know, and, you know, have days with low carbs just to get that weight off. So, you know, everyone has their gifts and everyone has their curses. I think my gift is I can put on the tissue very, very quickly with very minimal amount of food. And I think that's what's allowed me to keep my waist a little bit tighter because I don't have to force feed that much, you know, compared to other guys. But then when it comes to the diet, I really got to suffer, man. Ron, I really got to suffer. This wasn't as bad as North Americans. I did 50 minutes on the Stairmaster. It was kind of intervals.
Yep.
So speed intervals of, you know, 2 minutes on of low interval speed, 1 minute of high. So a high would be like level 11, and then a low would be like level 6 or level 7.
Dude, 11 is almost running up that thing.
Yeah, you know, so it I had to do a lot of those, but this time I would say I ate more than I've ever eaten in a prep. So it's improving. My appetite and my appetite's improving a lot.
Yeah, look at your biceps. They really suck. Look at that.
That's what I've been told, man. That's what I've been told.
You're obviously your quads are a standout. Do you attribute any of that to the track? Did they grow really fast when you started training?
So here's the thing, like I've never I've always been very balanced as a physique. So I never really considered my quads to be like a strong point. It's only recently that's become like a thing where people are like, your quads are like a strong point on your physique. Maybe it's the Stairmaster that's causing it, but from doing all those intervals. But it's always never. It was always just like standard. Like I always had like very good triceps. My triceps was always a standout body part. Like if you see, they kind of shoot out of my arms.
Yeah.
It was always a standout body part. And then my chest was also a standout body part. But everything has always been kind of balanced. It's just recently that the quads, I noticed that when I come down in weight, because of the diet and, just coming down in size, I guess I lose a little bit of that upper body, because I'll show you one on Instagram on there that you can see when I was coming down first. You'll see that my quads were not even a very strong point. It was just balanced. So go down a little bit there. Just a little bit more, just a little bit. Yeah, just one more right there. That video on the left. Right on the left. Yeah. So you see when I was actually coming down, my quads are not really a strong point there. It's just balanced. Right here?
Right here? They look pretty damn great to me.
Yeah, but do you think they're overpowering my upper body though?
No. Right? I mean, you look more balanced. I
exactly.
think that's why you're doing so well, is because you have a very balanced physique. Nothing really stands out. I mean, I only point out the quads because there were a couple guys in that, even in the Legion, Blessing needs more quads. That guy from Brazil, Bruno, he needs more quads. I'm one of those. Quads are I don't know why I fixate on quads so much. Probably because when I competed, that was like my best body part. But when I see guys with substandard quads, I'm like, ugh. But then when I see guys with awesome quads, I'm like, yes, awesome, finally.
But Ron, do you see what I'm saying though? Like maybe I'm being overcritical of myself. Where you see from the upper shelf, like my upper shelf here compared to even like on show day is still a lot bigger. Like it's still a lot denser than it seems like I lost a little bit of that density on top compared to like actual show day, like, which is why people may be saying I may be a little bit more lower body dominant, which is not really the case. Do you kind of see that?
You suspect it might have been from the step mill or the stairs, but usually what happens with that is guys lose their legs. Like we were always wondering with like Derek Lunsford, like why does he? This is the second time we've seen him lose a lot of his leg fullness. He did it at the 24 Olympia, and it happened to him again at Pittsburgh. And we were all speculating because he never came out and told anybody, well, this is why my legs are down. But I've seen guys, just local guys dieting and prepping and stuff that their legs kind of go away from too much cardio. But you might be one of those guys that can do all kinds of cardio and the legs never go anywhere.
Yeah, it's strange, right? Because I know like Keon, for example, does Stairmaster, right? And his quads are kind of a standout at this point compared to even when he started his career. So it's kind of weird. Like it's kind of weird like that. I feel like some people it benefits them, some people it kind of doesn't,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
Well, you can see it here, right? You can see like there's a pure balance between the upper, like that. If you see this most muscular versus the actual show day, you will see that maybe I'm just being overly critical of myself. I feel like I may have lost a little bit of density up top.
Compared to this, now that I'm looking at this and we just saw the Legion pictures. Yeah, your upper body was a little flatter than this. It was a little smaller than what I'm looking at here. And your legs didn't seem to have changed at all. They got leaner. They got more conditioned. But yeah, I mean, you and Andrew will figure it out. This is, you've only had these. Yeah. Was it your third prep? Because did you do North American with him?
Yeah, this is our second prep. I mean, it's because it's 2 shows in one, right? So this is just our second prep. So we'll definitely figure it out. Figure it out.
He's very good. Yeah, you're in good hands. He's one of those guys, he's one of the guys that his name doesn't come up as often for whatever reason. Because I don't think he seeks the limelight, doesn't do a lot of interviews. He's not big on social media, but behind the scenes, I've known a lot of people that work with him, and consistently they get in great shape. So
and Ron, as an athlete, to be honest, I kind of like that sometimes. This being my first pro, my first pro, pro season. the pressure was very, very different from before. And if you have, and I'm not knocking any coaches to do this, but sometimes like if a coach is, kind of giving updates about an athlete out there in the open, sometimes it could put a little bit more pressure on the athlete themselves as well.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's kind of nice where the coach is kind of on the back end. And I know Aceto is like that too. Even if he's in the limelight, he doesn't really speak about the athletes a lot. It's kind of, he gives ambiguous updates unless you really push him. Yeah. Right. And there's a reason, I understand there's a reason why he does that, because you don't want to, it's also a mental game, right? You don't want to add more pressure to, the athletes themselves as they're trying to just bring their best, because I know like I said, I'm not knocking anyone, but like, I know like Milos and Samson, when they were working together, I know like I was hearing Samson's updates every single day, and I don't know how that impacted him, but sometimes it could be detrimental to the athlete, in the long run.
Well, I mean, I think it puts a lot of pressure on them in the sense that people are going to be hypercritical, and if you're in the comments section of your posts, you're going to run into, no matter how good you look, even if you're Mr. Olympia, you're going to have 1,000 comments saying you suck and this body part sucks. You should give it up. You should retire. There's a lot of good stuff out there that you're going to hear, and there's a lot of really negative. If I were in your position, I wouldn't even like read the comments the last 4 weeks before a show.
Yeah. I think there's been a lot of bodybuilders that have paved the way for my generation to know what and what not to do. With social media, I think like Phil Heath, for example, he was the first Mr. Olympia that had to deal with it. And, I think everyone learned from that template. Like there's certain ways to handle certain things. Like you could be loved today. Yeah. Today, in Reno, I was overlooked and prejudged, and I came back. I'm the media's darling right now. Yeah. And tomorrow I could be the villain. I could maybe show up not the way people wanted me to, and it's over. It's over. So you just you stick with your team. The people that have been there from the beginning, that kind of know what's going on behind the scenes. Those are the people you confide in. Yeah. I think that's very important, to get your validation from your team and the people around you versus getting it from social media. It's just a tool at the end of the day. It's just a tool that you leverage. That's the way I see it.
The fans in our sport, I'm sure it's not that different from other sports, but they will turn on you in a second with one bad showing. If you place poorly or show up out of shape, you suck. I'm unfollowing you. You blah, blah, blah. You'll get all kinds of negative, but then you can come back a week or two later. Look at Patrick Moore. 2 weeks ago, everyone was saying Patrick Moore sucks. He should give it up. He should retire. He's done. Shows up looking fantastic at this Legion show. All of a sudden, everyone loves him again. Oh, you're the greatest. What a great job. But it's the same people that were saying he sucked 2 weeks ago. So
yeah, look at Nick Walker pre-Pittsburgh.
Oh, same even before
before Pittsburgh. Yeah. Now it's like, oh, Nick is gonna win the Olympia. It's like, yeah, it's just how the cookie crumbles, unfortunately, with the sport. But as athletes, again, we also have to understand that, so you can't take it too personal when someone criticizes you or critiques you. You can't take it too personal, because it's just the lay of the land. That's just how it goes. This is my first pro season, Ron, and like the predictions were coming out. I've never experienced it before. And, I've seen in the past where some people get mad, like, they don't have me in top 3. They don't have me slated to win. Like, what the hell? Mm-hmm. Like, there were some that put me like, someone put me in 8th. I think someone was like, oh, he's all hype. Yep. But it's like, it's part of the sport. Like if people don't make the predictions, no one's going to talk about the show. It doesn't generate any kind of, conversation, and generating the conversation is the most important thing. So me personally, I think it's all good for the sport. Both the good and the bad of the drama is what brings people and stares them into this whirlpool of chaos that we all like to live and operate in. Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned the predictions, because I do those with I did one for this show. I did one on my channel with Matt from Muscle Discord, and I did one on his channel a couple days before that with him and Phil Clayar. And we had you up there, but we talked about the fact we had you in like top 5. It's crazy you didn't make that first call out. That's when I was watching the stream, that's what I was really scratching my head is why isn't Ken in the first call out? But whatever, they found you. They overlooked you for a second, but they found you.
Yeah,
but without we have like nothing to talk about.
That's what I mean. And you know, with the call out thing too, you know, these things happen at shows, but you know, with that one, it was kind of like, I'll be honest, I was a little bit bummed, you know, that happened, because I had flown all the way to Reno from Jersey. You know, this is my first show where I'd ever prepped alone. Not prepped alone, but like gone there alone. Yeah. You know, no family, no friends. There was no one there. It was just me. And when that happened to prejudging, I was like, damn, did I really just do all this to come here to, you know, play second call outs? Like, I think I'm good enough to be in the first call outs. You know, I really think I'm good enough to be in the first call outs. But I got to say, sometimes this is where the internet can be very powerful, because online there was a massive outcry. You know, yeah. I don't think that if this was in, you know, the 90s or early 2000s, if this wasn't streamed and it was in a vacuum, I'm not sure the outcome would have changed that much, you know, if it hadn't been streamed all the way online, you know. So I'm glad it at least allowed the judges to take a second look, and they saw that indeed, you know, we did overlook him, you know, in the morning. So let's give him a shot here. And thankfully I was able to fight my way to fifth. I think I could have fought to third. I would have liked to have been compared, honestly, to Bruno. Yeah. At least Bruno and Patrick. I never got a chance to compare to them. I only got a chance to compare to Florian and Blessing. Yeah. I never really got a chance to stand next to, because, you know, Bruno is a little bit more narrow, so I could have exposed him there.
In the legs. You have him on the legs all day.
Yeah. Great. And when I say this, I don't mean it in any negative way. He's a great athlete. He's a great guy. I like, really great guy. I love Bruno. He was really nice. But like, I just never got a chance to stand next to them for people to see and actually say, okay, well, why don't we consider him for a second or third spot? I was never given that option. So, but you know, overall, it was still a net positive experience, you know, coming out of that show. I have no complaints. Chris Mines, the promoter, he did a phenomenal job. I've never been at a show where, as an athlete, I felt like a superstar, you know, just being at that show. He really puts on a serious production there in Legion. So if you're an athlete, definitely consider doing Legion. It's a really, really good show. Really, really good show. I had a blast. So
I've been to it a couple of times, and I tell everyone, if it fits your time frame for the year, do that show, because Chris and his team, they look out for the athletes. They put on a really quality production. Everything's top notch. This is Apollon Gym. I've been there.
Yeah.
Edison, New Jersey.
Edison. Yeah. That's my home gym. It's literally like 10 minutes from my house. Yeah.
Is it still owned by the Russian gentleman?
By Rob. Yeah, it's still owned by Rob.
Okay. Couldn't remember his name. Yeah, because I went there for a Dorian Yates seminar one time, and a Gaspari son, Rich Gaspari, did one too. Good gym. Really old, hardcore old school stuff there.
Oh yeah, it's old school. You know, atmosphere is everything. Like the TikTok kids, you know, the lighting in there is not that great, so they don't like that gym. So no one goes there. You know, so it's perfect for me. It's a perfect layer for me to get the job done. You know, so yeah, it's old school. You know, sometimes in the winters the heat's not that great. You know, so you got to be bundled up, but hey man, that's the grit that makes it work, you know. So it's great.
My gym is freezing in the winter and it's boiling hot in the summer. So.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how it is, you know.
Well, tell me, obviously New York Pro was like, you know, a couple hours drive for you. It made sense. But what was it like stepping on stage after waiting close to 2 years? Because when was North American? September of 23?
Yeah, around September 23. Yeah.
So it had been a long time since you've been on stage. But what was it like to get back up there? And now you're with, you know, Nick Walker and the other guys.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite a drastic jump. You know, I wasn't really I didn't really feel the impact of it till the week before New York, where I was like, holy shit, I got to stand next to Crizzo, you know, like, you know, but when you get there, you know, as an athlete, and you know, I do posing practice and, you know, practice rounds and mandatories and all that. it kind of becomes like the fire drill now kind of becomes like the real life situation, right? So I got there and it just felt like any other show. It felt like any other show. One thing I do is when I get to a show, I put on my headphones. I try to stay as mentally calm as possible. So if you're backstage and you see me, I'm always with my headphones on, like I just don't want to hear anything but my own thoughts and my own side. I want to be in my own. So it allows me to keep calm usually. And yeah, I mean, it flew. I feel like New York really flew because the bodybuilding, New York is kind of split into two. The way they do the prejudging, there's like 2 prejudgings.
Yeah.
So the bodybuilding section, we got there and like in 15 minutes we were out there. Wow. It was really, really quick. So it took a while for it to all soak in. Pretty much it didn't soak into like finals, where I was like, oh, okay, we're actually top 6 in New York. Like, this is crazy. This is crazy.
And were you happy with 6th, or would you? Obviously you wanted to win, but that was a hell of a debut because that's a tough show. That's not a second tier show.
No, New York, there was a battle between me and Sauce. The scorecards didn't show it, but 5th and 6th was in contention between me and Sauce. But to be quite honest with you, Sauce, he's a hell of an athlete. He's not only an athlete, I'm a fan of Sauce. I watched him in 2017 when he competed at New York against Sergio and came second. Yeah. So for me, I think 6th was the best I was going to get, at that show, realistically, like, especially for a guy like Sauce, to me, who I think he should be on the Olympia stage. He's ready to be on that level. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? So 6th place for me felt like it was an honor just to be amongst that caliber, because clearly it seemed like there were 2 tiers. The way they judged that show, there were 2 tiers. They judged all the way to 6 and they judged from 6 down. Yeah. So for me, it felt like, okay, I'm amongst the first tier of the bodybuilders here. And that was enough for me. That was all I needed I just needed to know, as a new pro, where do I stand in this operational ladder, so to speak, right? And for me, that was enough. So 6 was good. I'll take 6th. Yeah.
Not to talk too much about Sauce because we're talking about you, but I feel so bad for that guy with 3 second places in a row, or not in a row. He had another showing, but still, in the point system era, which was we just did away with that not long ago. He'd already probably have his Olympia qualification. He'd have enough points to go. Because 2nd in Detroit, 2nd in FIBO, was 2nd Cal, right?
And here's the thing, Ron. This is the story of his career. It's not just like it's this season. I feel so terrible because I'm such a fan of his physique. Like, I feel like that is a physique that should be celebrated more on stage. It's very clean. It's very aesthetic. He's got mass and size with like that kind of like shrink wrap, like plastic look with conditioning. And for some reason, he just keeps running into these roadblocks at the end where he can't just get the official deal. And it hurts me because I'm a fan of him, and that's a physique that I like for bodybuilding. That's a physique that I think should represent bodybuilding. You know what I mean? So it hurts me to see that he hasn't been able to clench that final piece. I would love to see him do it. Sometimes it's just, I call it strategic bodybuilding. Maybe you just got to pick a more strategic show. Maybe go to China, man. Instead of going to Toronto, maybe you should go to China. Just fuck it. Just go to take it at that show in China, and go to the Olympia.
You mentioned that some people get really mad if somebody does something like that, but you know what? You have to be strategic, because if you're taking second to guys like Nick Walker or Andrew Jack, these are like top 5 Olympians. What are you thinking? You got to find a show where there's no top 5 Olympians competing, and that you can get to the Olympians. I think Sass is a legit top 10 Olympian.
He is. He is.
And if he doesn't get to the Olympia this year, that's going to be a shame.
That's what I mean. And he has every right, in my opinion. Like, if people get mad, but that's someone that has every right to go pick whatever show he wants. Because think about it from a competitor's perspective as well, Ron. Like, he's been competing since Detroit. So if he continues to extend the season, there's going to be a point where even if he makes it to the Olympia, that prep is going to be compromised because you've just been going for way too long.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not going to be your best showing. So for me, it's kind of like at that point, you got to make that critical decision. Do we pull the plug now and say we wait and pick an earlier show next year, or we really have to strategically pick a show? Because I love Sauce, but if Regan's doing Toronto, you know, Regan already beat him in New York and beat him in Cali.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, man, just go to China, man. Just take the ticket, go to China, get your qualification. Like, I know it's not about winning sometimes, but for a guy who has proven himself, I think Sauce has proven himself well and well beyond anyone else this season. He's got all right.
You heard it.
China. Go to China, Sauce. Go to China. Get that qualification, bro.
They'll be very happy to have him over there anyway. You know?
Yeah, they'll treat him like a king. You know, they'll even pay to bring him over there. You know, that's a big superstar.
A couple other things. We talked before we started recording about imposter syndrome is a fairly common thing. Like the late Kurt Cobain felt he wasn't really as good as people thought he was. You didn't know you were as good as you were. I mean, you're finally starting to realize it, I think, now. But for a while, you really had a lot of self-doubt about how far your potential was, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Elaborate, please.
I mean, so, you know, when you start bodybuilding, right, it's kind of like you're this small. Like I said, you can't relate to the Ronnies. You can't relate to the Flex Wheelers. It's just a ceiling that is just way too high and way too unattainable. So you don't see that for yourself. Then, you know, for me, myself, when I got to nationals, I had come sixth at that national show, but you know, I wasn't tight enough in condition, but the physique was there at that show. And people had told me there that, you know, if you come in tighter, you'd win this. But so at the same time, it's kind of like, yeah, okay, I'm a national level competitor. I can win this show, but even if I turn pro, would I actually be a good pro? There's levels to this, right, Ron? Like, you've been following bodybuilding forever. You know, you've been in this industry forever. There's different levels of pros. If people don't know this, it is true. There's tiers of pros. You have the Olympia pros, the pro winners. They go to any show. They can win a pro show and go to the Olympia. Then you've got the second tier where, you know, they can win a show here or there, you know, depending on who's in the lineup. You know, they can kind of expose who's in the lineup and go to the Olympia, and maybe they can place, you know, outside of the top 10. Bottom of the top 10 is the best they could get. And then there are guys who are just never going to win a pro show. Let's be honest. You're just not going to win a pro show. And my biggest fear, Ron, that kept me up at night was I was going to be a tier 3 bodybuilder.
Wow.
You know, I had won North Americans. I had done all this, sacrificed all this to this point, and then I'm just going to go to a show and just be on the sideline watching the first call outs every single show.
Wow.
That's a nightmare scenario that has kept me up at night. I'll be honest.
So Ken, nobody told you after North American how good your potential was? Because I can see when people turn pro, even if they still need more size or condition or whatever, I look at all the shows where people turn pro, and I'm not going to name any names, but there's guys who have turned pro at some very weak pro qualifiers, or they did it as masters. And immediately I looked at them and said, he ain't going to do shit as a pro. And I've almost never been proven wrong. I don't say it gleefully. I don't wish them a horrible pro career, but I said they just don't. The structure is all, they have a wide hips, narrow this. I could see but I could see someone, when you turn pro, I remember the pictures, I go, if this guy fills out, gets better condition and fills out, he's going to be very, very good. So I'm surprised nobody told you that.
I mean, that's the problem, right? People tell you, but people told me my whole life. People told me before I even started competing in bodybuilding. People thought I was a competitive bodybuilder before I ever competed in bodybuilding. So when you've heard that your whole life, that you're this, but mentally here, it hasn't translated. One more person telling you that you're good is not going to change it. Does that kind of make sense?
No, it does.
You know, it wasn't a situation where, okay, people had actually told me for the first time. I'm like, whoa, it's like, people have been telling me this the whole time, but it's like, for me, myself, I couldn't see it, you know? And that's something that I struggled with. Like, even Legion, this show, like the New York Pro, I was amongst Olympia level competitors, like top 10 Olympians. So it wasn't that crazy, you know, the size, but in Legion, you know, I realized for the first time that I actually have big enough size. You know, I was like, I didn't think I was going to be one of the bigger guys, but you go up there and you realize, like, I looked at the stream, I looked at the analysis, post analysis after, and I'm like, oh wow, I'm actually I actually have size, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's, I feel like this happens to a lot of bodybuilders. I guess it's part of the bigorexia. You could say maybe I have a little bit of a disorder of the bigorexia,
Yep.
because I just don't feel like, sometimes I just haven't felt like I'm good enough. Like I look at myself and I see a guy like, you know, Andrew Jack. He came on the scene, you know, wins his first pro show, goes straight to the Olympia. It's like, well, that's not my story, you know. So do I have it? But then you forget that Andrew is a unicorn. He's an exception.
Yeah.
But then the fear is that, okay, if he's the exception to the rule, and I am just a standard bodybuilder, what does the projection for a standard bodybuilder look like? Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. But, you know, it's funny because I was going to tell you, you know, I get DMs and people talk to me all the time that are, I could see they just don't have the potential, but they're convinced that they're going to be Mr. Olympia. They don't see it. And they have people around them blowing up their egos, you know, guys at their gym or their family, people that have no eye for it. And it's ironic to me that most of the guys I run into that don't think they're that good or have great potential are the guys like you that actually have the best potential, and they doubt themselves. And, you know, they don't even take me seriously sometimes. I've been at local shows when the guy wins the show, and I said, well, you're really good, you should keep going. And they're like, you think? They just don't see it. They don't understand. It's because across the board. Like I said, this happens to actors, musicians. There's
you know what,
incredible.
You know what I think it is. You know,
Yeah.
it's like the knowledge stream, right? With the Gaussian curve. The more you know, the more you realize the less you know, right? With knowledge, the people that don't know anything always think they know the most, right?
Yeah.
But the people that realize that the domain of whatever knowledge tree that they're trying to seek, they realize that it's so deep that they know nothing, but they're experts in the field, right?
Yeah.
I think it's something along those lines. I really feel like it has to be something along those lines, because people like me, I feel like, too, you win a pro show. I mean, now I've gotten that validation after Legion in New York.
Yeah,
it will come in ebbs and flows, but I've gotten that validation. But people like me, you need like one of those critical, like you win a pro show or you have an outstanding performance at a show to actually believe. Like, people telling you is not going to be enough, because you know what the ceiling looks like. You know, you've seen, you know, people say, oh, I want to be Chris Bumstead. You don't if you don't follow or understand bodybuilding, you don't realize how almost impossible that statement you made sounds. Just the insertions, the structure, the you know, how he's put together. You don't just wake up and become a Chris Bumstead, no matter how you train, no matter what drugs you take.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the knowledge to understand that, you're always going to think you can attain it, when realistically you can never. So that's what I think is happens to people like me.
Fair enough. So competitions, you've done your first 2 pro shows. I didn't see your name on the list for Toronto. So I'm assuming, are you done for the season, or what's the plan?
So, Ron Harris, there's this magical thing called PTO. It's called paid time off.
Yeah.
You know, that us regular people have to abide by. You know, I've used a lot of time PTO to compete in New York and compete at Legion, and you know, whatever little time I had left, it was going to be used to compete at the Olympia if I made it. But you know, as of right now, realistically, I don't know if I could even make it to the Olympia. Like, if I went to Toronto, you know, Regan's competing at Toronto.
Yeah,
I don't think I'm going to be. I don't think I would beat Regan at this point. He's on a very good trajectory.
You're not beating Regan yet.
No,
I could see it happening in the near future, but right now, no, they love Regan.
Yeah, he's on a very good trajectory. So to me, it's kind of a, you know, I'm on borrowed time here. I don't have the luxury to just fly to these places. I don't have the financial backings either to fly to these places. Everything is coming out of my pocket. You know, Animal, thank God, they've alleviated some of my bodybuilding financial burdens, but you know, I don't know how some of these guys do it, but it's all out of pocket, you know, because when people say, oh, he should just go to this show and go to this show, it's an expense that is coming out of someone's pocket. And if you're not slated to even make any money at that show, it's very hard to convince someone to just say, oh, let me just go pump another $3,000, get a flight and all this, and I'm just going to go there and show up, you know? So for me, it doesn't make any sense at this point. So I think we're going to have to shut it down, at least for now. I'm also planning, like I told you before, I'm planning to move pretty soon. So I have other life things that I'm trying to take care of right now that I've put on the back burner since prep that I need to take care of. And once that's done, we'll see. But I don't think I want to go into a deep off season. Not yet. I think the improvements we need to make right now, we could be pretty moderate with, you know, the off season. So we'll see. Maybe if we're within striking distance, we can maybe pick a later show for the earlier qualification for next year. But the way things are standing with the way things are going this year with the shows left, I don't think it makes sense. Strategically, it doesn't make sense because even if I was to jump in, my Olympia prep itself would still be compromised just based on how long I spent to just prep for these. I prepped for 20 weeks, you know, just to get to New York because I came from a deep off season, you know. So there's just no point when you look at it. When you look at the data, you look at the numbers, there's just no point realistically at this point. So we got to shut it down.
Did you get any feedback from the judges as to what they want to see in the future from you?
Yeah. So I got some feedback. So obviously, you know, getting a little bit more tighter is always, you could always come in a little bit more conditioned. Yeah. That was one. Two, my back double probably needs to improve.
Yeah.
You know, I got an interesting one from Tamer though. He said that I pose too fluid for my physique. He said he wants me to pose more like a hottie than I pose a little too flowy. You know, like I have a powerful physique.
Yeah.
So I got to pose with more conviction on the physique. So I don't know. We'll practice it. I'll see. I mean, see what it looks like. Take a few comparisons with the two, but we'll see where it goes. Yeah.
Is he talking about like the routine that's not even judged, or the mandatory, the judging?
Just the judging, right? So he says, like, you know, when you do like a front double, for example, right? You do a front double. A lot of people will be like, you know, they hit the front. I'm just like, you know, I hit it gracefully, put a smile. He's like, he says he wants more conviction. I'm a little too graceful. My physique doesn't match the flow, I guess. So I don't know. We'll see.
Pose like a big brute, like a Hulk, I guess. Okay.
Yeah. Posing like a swan versus a brute, you know.
So last thing we'll talk about is the move, because you're moving from the Garden State all the way to what I think is becoming the new mecca for bodybuilding, Dallas, Texas area. I mean, think about all the guys you mentioned a few that have moved. I know Sean Clarita got a place out there. He's been out there a couple of years now. Beef Stew is there. Brett Wilkins, Martin Fitzwater. Who's Jordan? Jordan Janowitz?
Jordan Janowitz is also there, but Jordan Hutchinson's also there too.
Hutchinson. And who's Justin?
Yeah. Justin?
Yeah, you mentioned a Justin. There's so many, all these young names. But anyway, I guess it's not important. The important thing is, what are the compelling reasons you think you and all these other bodybuilders are moving to Dallas?
Two reasons. One, you know, first the training equipment, right? So you've been to Apollon. I'm not training in the best. It's a great gym, but my competitors are training in way better facilities than I am right now. They have a training edge over me. I need to get to a better gym where I can have access to a lot more equipment, a lot more things to try different angles and things like that. So for me, that's one reason. There's a lot of good gyms in Texas. The weather is also very conducive to bodybuilding. Prepping in the winter is very, very difficult as a bodybuilder. When you're on the East Coast, you barely get any, and you barely get any sunlight. There were weeks where I saw no sunlight, you know, for weeks just because I work. So that could be very difficult. And also just let's face it, cost of living for bodybuilders. We eat a lot. We have a lot of expenditures that takes place. You want to go to an area where the cost of living is just a little bit better. You can't be a bodybuilder living in Miami. It's just not that's not the best place for you, bro. Like even Boston, I'm sorry, but Boston is not the best place for a bodybuilder. It's bad weather, very overpriced. The gyms are, unless it's Jose Raymond's gym down there, there's not a lot of great gyms. I've been to Boston for a lot of work conferences and stuff. So it's like, man, this is a difficult place to live as a bodybuilder, So you got to go where it's conducive, and then community, right? Community is also very important. I think Texas has a very, very big bodybuilding community, which means, for a lot of bodybuilders, more business opportunity, more networking to get things done, and even training partners, simple as training partners, or, let's face it, some bodybuilders too. Like, this is a very isolated type of sport. It's very hard to socialize and meet people. You're in the gym all the time. So just having people around that understand what you do and, live the same lifestyle that you do is very important to some people, especially people like in my generation, So, yeah, I think those are kind of some of the bullet points, if I can think of it off the top of my head, that's kind of making people kind of gravitate there.
How much of this do you think has to do with gas? Because they moved their headquarters there a few years ago. They built that destination Dallas, the big gym and everything. Mm-hmm. And that's why Martin went out there. That's why Brett went out there. And you're a GASP athlete as well, aren't you?
I'm a GASP athlete. Yeah, I'm a GASP athlete as well.
Did that have anything to do with you?
Absolutely. I mean, the gym there is the creme de la creme. He's and MJ, the owner of GASP, has been able to bring so many bodybuilders together. So he's created this huge network, over there, which has made people want to be part of that community. You know what I mean? Like, so, for me here in Jersey, I'm kind of alone. It's just me and my girlfriend. We're kind of isolated from everything. There's not really a lot of the bodybuilding community on the East Coast is not what it used to be. It's not like when Bev Francis, when Max Charles, Juan Morel, all these guys, Victor Martínez, De La Rosa, these guys were here. It's all gone. It's not like that anymore on the East Coast. Mm-hmm. So that community, for bodybuilders, it's especially younger bodybuilders that are coming up in the ranks. It's very important. It's very important. So MJ's been able to create that kind of that kind of solace, that kind of place for us to thrive. And I think that's what's attracting a lot of people as well. Right. Housing prices is what's attracting me, but
before we start recording, I did an interview with Clarita shortly after we moved there. Yeah. And I couldn't believe the house he got for the money he paid for it. Because, I think Massachusetts and New Jersey are pretty comparable as far as how overpriced the real estate is. And I was like, really? It was like a 4-bedroom house, 2 full baths, beautiful in-ground pool. And it's like, it was less than what what I paid for my house here in like 2001, which is not that, trust me. It's not that cool, brand new, big house with a massive backyard. So, yeah, I can totally understand. And I see Dallas only getting more and more of a reputation as like that new Mecca, because we don't have LA hasn't been the Mecca for about at least 30 years now.
No, a lot of the people from LA have moved to Vegas because of the same thing, right? Cost of living is just so expensive. For me, Andrew's also in Dallas, so I'm closer to my coach, which makes more sense. But with the housing thing, when I'm trying to get something done, I over research it. Let me ask you a curious question. What do you think is the average age for a first-time homeowner in New Jersey? What do you think the statistics for that is? First-time homeowner.
I'm going to say 35.
No, it's 43 years old.
Oh, God.
43 for a first-time homeowner in New Jersey. Wow. That's the stats today.
Wow.
It's like, come on, man. Like
things have changed. I mean, I feel bad for your generation. You're exactly the same age as my daughter. And I don't want to say I pity your generation, but man, we screwed you over with the economy.
You really did. You could have been a single a single home income working at 7-Eleven in the 60s, and you can still provide for 2 kids, have a house, have a car, and still send your kid to college, working at 7-Eleven.
And you don't want to hear this, but my dad was a mail carrier. There were 7 kids in my family. My mother didn't work. We had a house. We always had plenty of food. We weren't well off or anything, but all those people lived off a mail carrier's salary, and the house was bought and paid for. The cars were paid for in cash.
That's what I'm saying.
70s, so yeah.
That's what some people say. Oh, millennials in our generation were lazy. We're like, are you guys kidding? Are you kidding me? Do you see what's happening out here? And your father, that house is now worth 500 times what it was.
It's gone, but it would have been a house that size now would be worth. It was a big house. It'd be worth probably close to $1 million because we had like an acre of land. We had 5 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. It was a little run down. It needed work that we never. But yeah, your generation, I would never call Gen Z. Are you Gen Z? No, you're a millennial.
Millennial, I think. Yeah.
Millennial. I think the oldest Gen Z is like 26 right now or something like that. But yeah, you guys are not lazy. It's just things are so much more expensive now. It's ridiculous.
And that's how wealth is accumulated. It starts with property. Yeah. If you don't have property, you have nothing. I don't care how much you make. You can make $1 million. If you don't have a house, you don't have any assets to your name, you are poor, my friend. So if you don't have an asset, you have nothing. So, and our generation, we have nothing, which is unfortunate. It's so sad.
My daughter and her husband, he's 31. She's 30. They're both 31. They're in Miami. They're in a neighborhood called Wynwood. What do you think they pay for rent on a 2-bedroom apartment?
In Miami, I'd say $3,400.
$5,000. So
Jesus,
it's a nice apartment, but still, that's disgusting. To me, that is just absolutely disgusting.
That's as a mortgage, that should be like a 5-bedroom house.
Yes,
for a mortgage.
All right, well, we've really gotten off track.
but these are the topics that I like, though. You know what I mean? This is like
we can talk shit all day, but at the end of the day, everyone watching this, you got to live somewhere. Either you're living at home with mom and dad, or you're renting.
But see, Ron, hey man, if I had one Legion or come top 3 in New York, I could have had a down payment. I could have my life could have changed. So bodybuilding, man, you gotta change my life. You gotta let me win a pro show so I could get a down payment on the house. I'm just trying to survive out here.
It's an Arnold the Olympic because they're finally starting to pay the bodybuilders.
I know. I gotta get an invite to the Arnold, come top 5 or something. I think 5th place is like 70 grand or something like that. So
750 is first. I bet second's still like 400 or something.
Yeah. I mean, hey, even 3rd place is good enough for me at this point.
Put in your, they invite all the top Olympians, of course, but everyone else they apply and they'll let you know. So by all means, apply to try to get to that show. Get that money, get that bag, as you kids say.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, that's we've been yapping for a while, man. Again, amazing rookie season so far. Even if we don't see you the rest of the season, I'm still going to be very much keeping an eye on you and looking out for any plans you have on watching your progress, because it's only up from here, man. And I'm happy to see good talent coming up all the time, because a lot of these guys, I don't want to generalize, but I don't see a ton of guys turning pro that I'm like, wow, this guy's going to be a really good pro. So when somebody finally jumps into a show and proves himself the way you've done these past couple of shows, it's encouraging. I want to see the sport grow and flourish, and I always want to see awesome new talent, because we're getting older guys have to step away and they have to be replaced. We got to bring in some fresh new blood that's really good, and you young guys, you're fulfilling that role very well. You're part of that crew. So
I appreciate that. With American bodybuilding, a lot of people, the old heads say, like, we're the good bodybuilders now. There's so much good talent, with especially American young bodybuilding now. People don't realize it, but there's a bottleneck right now to get to the Olympia. That old guard, bodybuilders compete a lot older than they used to.
Yeah.
So there is a bottleneck for a lot of our guys that, within our generation to get to that Olympia. Like, think about it, for American bodybuilders, new generation American bodybuilders, I think Tonio and Justin are the only ones that have made it to the Olympia, since the outside of the unicorns, Quentin hasn't made it. Carlos Thomas hasn't made it. Stu hasn't made it. There's a lot of us out there. It's just, there is a bottleneck to get to the Olympia. And the old guard, people are competing a lot longer.
Yeah.
And people are getting better as they get older, because the training has changed. The knowledge that's out there is more available. People are doing things a lot safer so they can extend their careers. So these are factors that people are not considering when they say these things. You got to look at the whole picture, which I think it's still good. I want to see guys like Samson and, all of them extend their careers as much as they can, but there is young talent that's trying to make it there. And I hope, at least for me, I hope I can make it there, next season. I'm going to try real hard. And, maybe I hope I don't have to go to China, but we'll see. We'll see.
Just throw this up, because you mentioned pumping iron in that movie. Arnold retired at the end of that movie. He did come back, but he was 27 or 28 years old, and he retired. Yeah. And Lou Ferrigno in that movie was 23 or 24, and he retired. He didn't announce it, but he didn't come back till 1992. Back then, there was like no money in the sport. There was no reason for anyone past the age of like 27 or 28 to keep doing it, because it was a dead end. What are you going to do? So I'm glad to see more money in the sport. I'm glad to see guys like yourself, the younger guys, still coming up the ranks. And I actually do like to see the older guys holding on and still able to make money and be relevant in their late 30s into their 40s, because that was impossible years ago. That was just like, you're done. You're 40.
That's what I mean. Absolutely. Like, I'm a huge William Bonac fan. And to compete against him at the New York, I actually stood next to him in a comparison. I was like, this is a dream come true, to actually be. And I told him, I was like, I'm a fan of you. Like, to actually be right next to him in the comparisons, and I have pictures with him, that I'm going to have for the rest of my life. It's amazing. This is someone that's in their 40s, and his physique is still standing the test of time. Yeah. I think it's an amazing thing. Samson is and Andrew in their late 30s, almost 40, and their physiques look like they're in their late 20s. Yeah. This is not something this isn't a phenomena this is a very recent thing. Their careers are extending further and further. Kamal Argarni is doing the Masters Olympia. He doesn't look like he doesn't even look like he took a year off. He looks the same. Yeah. It's like, it's an amazing thing. People don't realize that, the sport has changed. It's changed a lot, but it's changed for the better as well. It's changed for the better. And just like you, I'm a fan first before a competitor. And to me, it's just amazing to see like where the sport is going and how much it's actually growing. Like, I'm just really excited. Like, the way the IFBB has kind of brought everything together, even with Tyler Mannion, and doing the judging feedback, how judging is so open now, and they're actually communicating like what they want, with the judging feedback. I mean, things have changed. It's amazing. Like, I'm all for it. I think they're doing a great job, and with the way things are going, I mean, bodybuilding is never going to be mainstream, but I'm telling you, like, when it comes to like niche cultures, we're probably going to be, if not already, we're one of the biggest. That's just going to keep happening.
Yeah.
So.
One final thing about the judging is the judging now is so much more fair and unbiased. As if you've been following the sport early, like I was back in the late 80s and even into the 90s and beyond, there was a lot of politics. Sponsors had a lot to do with who placed where. It was a lot of bullshit happening. Let me tell you. And I don't see that happening. I have not seen more than a couple shows where I was like, oh my God, how could they possibly do that? I think the judges have been doing a fantastic job these last few years. And Tyler, they would never, you just had to suck it up. Oh, you didn't place where you wanted, too bad. But Tyler goes on YouTube and Instagram the Monday after these big shows, breaks it down pose for pose. They never would have done that years ago. Never would have been like, you don't like it? Screw you. We're not going to explain ourselves.
It's an amazing thing. And listen, as an athlete, it gives you direction of like how things are supposed to go. you know, because yeah, we say there's a rule book. Maybe it's somewhere in the archives of NPC News Online, but no one's reading that shit. Let's be real, you know? So it actually shows you what you're supposed to do. Okay, side tricep, I got to hit it conventional first before I do a transition. That was something that no one ever knew, right? Till Tyler said, this is the way it's supposed to go, right? So they're just little things like that that you don't even think about, or how you're still judged even when you're standing there. Because some people think it's when you're just being judged in the mandatories, when you're actually on stage, but you're being judged every time you're on that stage, right? So these are things that as competitors, you don't really know till someone actually states it as a fact. Someone with a position of authority states it as a fact. And you can then plan accordingly and train for that competition accordingly to what they want, which I think is really, really powerful. So Tyler's doing an awesome job. And I think that, you know, the league it's in good hands. It's in good hands.
I think he's your age. I think he's 31, or is he even younger?
Yeah, he has to be around my age or younger, but he's the vision for what he's doing is it's taking the sport into, it's modernizing the sport. That's how I like to say it. It's modernizing
100%. Yeah. I'm glad he's the one that, you know, obviously it's a family business. He's a Mannion, but I am glad to see someone younger taking the reins, someone of this new generation that they can, like you said, modernize it and keep up with the times. Because if there was like, you know, the magazine business that I was in, there's no magazine business because it was all old guys running it. And we didn't really understand what we were supposed to do to keep up with all the changes in culture and social media. And that's why we're gone. That's why there's no more magazines. So yeah, it's in good hands. And just to wrap it up, man, I'm very much a fan. I'm going to be following you, and guys, follow Ken on his Instagram. It's Colossus_Ken. And the Instagram is the same, Colossus Ken. I'm sorry, the YouTube. And there's a lot of good content on there. I've checked a few of the videos, skimmed through them. So
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
It's a fast growing channel because you're putting out some really good content.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I'll have one. You know, I just got back from Vegas like yesterday night. So I'll probably have something about, you know, a wrap up of Legion, my thoughts on there. I've noticed with YouTube as well too, like, you know, people see the workouts and stuff, but people just want to see the regular things, like your thoughts. What are your thoughts? You know, they want to see you having a coffee or whatever. It's more than just a workout. So I'm trying to diversify that content a little bit. So guys, if you watch that, I should have a video coming out, you know, about just my thoughts on the pro season so far. So if you have any questions on that, please, or something you want to see, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. Just send me a message, and I'll you know, make sure I try to include that in the content as well.
Right on. All right. Well, that'll wrap it up. Thanks for taking the time, and congratulations on this rookie season so far. If it's done, if it keeps going, even better. But if it's done, you've already made a hell of a statement, made a name for yourself. People know who you are now. They're going to be looking out for you and following you and watching you every day. So that's about all you can ask for in this sport, is to be one of the top guys that everyone knows who you are. So,
absolutely. And before we go, Ron, it would be very, very rude of me not to thank the people that have actually helped me out here. So I'd like to thank, you know, some of my sponsors that's brought me up to this point. Animal Pack, of course, my main sponsor. Without them, financially, guys, I got to be honest with you guys, financially, I couldn't do this without Animal. So thank you to them. Gasp, of course, they keep me clothed, keep me looking nice. Our guy, Carlo Filippone, he's been giving me that chicken. He's been giving me that chicken from Chicken Pound. I got to tell you, it's cut some costs for my food. So Carlo Filippone from Chicken Pound, I want to thank you as well for you know, helping me out this prep. And then Elevate with the rice, the cream of rice. They're doing a great job over there as well. So I want to thank those sponsors. And of course, my team, you know, my coach, Andrew Vu, you've changed my life. You know, taking a guy who had no confidence in this sport to where I am now is kind of impressive. You've absolutely changed my life, and I'm thankful. Sid Rai, my big brother, he's the one who introduced me, and he's still part of the team. He helps me with my posing, all my fundamentals. And of course, my girlfriend, Morgan, she's been my number one support system. I couldn't have gone to this point without her. So I want to thank everyone. And Ron, thank you for having me on this interview. I think this was great. I think we just like bonded like real quick and just started just chatting. So it was pretty cool. So thank you so much.
I feel like I've known you for 10 years now. It's
I
crazy.
know, right? We could keep going. We could keep going.
All right, cool. Well, wishing you the best as the year goes on, and congrats on everything. And that's it, guys. Follow him on those platforms. Thanks for watching Round 9 Report with this man, Kennedy Anyanwu. Did I say the last name right? Anyanwu?
You got it perfectly. You got it
Thank
perfectly.
you. Finally. And that's it. We'll see you guys next time.